Hello YouTube, this is Frank and welcome to the Hobbyist YouTube channel. And today in this video I would like to talk to you about this illustration series that I've been working on. It is inspired by the video game Pokemon Conquest, and the ambition is to visualize a crossover between the officers from the Dynasty Warriors franchise and the Pokemon intellectual property. And for this video I would like to talk to you about the latest entry of this illustration series, in which I am visualizing a mashup between Zhou Yu from Dynasty Warriors 4 and Flareon, which is a fire-type Pokemon from the first generation game. And before we jump into talking about the drawing techniques, I would like to first say a few words about the two characters, Zhou Yu and Flareon. So Zhou Yu is my favorite character from the Three Kingdoms era, and the reason why I like him so much is that I think he embodies all the qualities that constitute a very tragic, very romantic hero. If we really look at his life, he achieved a lot when he was only 16 years of age. He became the head of the naval force for the Wu faction. Even though we know that people from a more ancient era, they tend to mature more quickly because of their relatively short lifespan, to essentially become a Navy general, a Grand Admiral by the age of 16 is still a very impressive feat. And on top of that, he also got married to Xiaoqiao, who is known for her feminine beauty of that period. And if we look at another hero, another very tragic hero, and dare I say the most fearsome, the most well-known warrior throughout the Chinese history, which is Xiang Yu. These two characters, they share a lot of similarities. They both achieved a lot at a relatively young age. They both got married to the most beautiful woman of their time. And the third similarity would be they both died very young. So Zhou Yu, he died at the age of 36, which to people from that period is still a very untimely, a very premature death. So with that said, if we condense the qualities that are necessary to constitute a tragic romantic hero down to 3 criteria, including being able to achieve a lot at a relatively young age, got married to one of the most beautiful women of his period, and also died very young. I think Zhou Yu is all of them. That's why I like him so much. And talking about Flareon, the reason why I matched Zhou Yu with this particular Pokemon is because, for this illustration series, I have a very particular color scheme. So for the Shu faction, because the costumes of the officers are really green dominant, meaning they wear a lot of green color. When I'm trying to match the officers from the Shu faction with Pokemons, I try to look for green colored Pokemons that also have a personality that looks like the officer. And same goes with the Wei faction. They wear a lot of violet, a lot of blue. Hence, when I'm looking at Pokemon, I tend to look for the violet colored Pokemons. And for the Wu faction, because of their costume is mainly red dominant, hence I'm looking for fire type and red looking Pokemon to match with these officers. And now let's go ahead and talk about the drawing techniques. So in terms of the drawing technique, one major change I did was that whereas before when I'm doing an illustration for a character, I would start off with the line work, this time around I started off trying to communicate the character Zhou Yu's masses using a flat brush and just grayscale to really try to convey the sense of heaviness and the masses. And this is something that I learned off of some illustration tutorials, and I saw one of the illustrators, he said that if you always start off your illustrations with line works, no matter how skilled you are as an illustrator, your work would always end up looking very unrealistic. However, if you change up your techniques, if you first try to communicate how the character looks in terms of masses and using grayscale to do that, you would be able to add a lot of realism to your work. So that's one major change I did to my illustration. And the next step I did was I tried to use my imagination to visualize what Flareon looks like. However, because of my lack of familiarity with this Pokemon, and because of my lack of knowledge in terms of animal anatomy, my first attempt at visualizing Flareon out of my imagination was horrendous. It was terrible. It looks like a combination of a rabbit and a cat. And I decided that I really need to, for the time being, do more work on Zhou Yu, and maybe come back later after I've looked at some tutorials on how to draw cats and dogs realistically, and then work on Flareon. And that's what I did. For the time being, I just added more detail to Zhou Yu's body and did some tests to his facial features. And as you can see right now, I also used my custom brushes just to do a little test of the preliminary coloring to see what the final outcome would look like. And right now you can see that after I looked at some images that explains the anatomy of cats and dogs, you can see that this time around Flareon looks more realistic. It looks like, you know, the first generation Pokemon that we love and like. And right here I'm just doing some very playful Chinese script calligraphy, and this script is from the text The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and Zhou Yu said this after he realized how brilliant a person Zhuge Liang was. And I think the author's intention of using this script is to demonstrate what a mean-spirited, what a petty person Zhou Yu is. However, if you really get to know Zhou Yu as a person by reading the real, authentic historical documents, you would find that he is not such a person at all. Nobody with such a mean spirit can achieve to such high level of military ranking at such a young age. That's simply not true. And right here you can see I'm adding more saturation using my custom brush to apply coloring to the two characters. Prior to this, I added a lot of details to Zhou Yu's costume by looking at reference photos. And in terms of Flareon, his coloring is really minimal. And in terms of the coloring for Flareon, my goal for him is just to use one or two very simple shades to communicate his mask, because I really want the centerpiece of this illustration to be Zhou Yu alone. And in terms of Zhou Yu's facial features, my goal is to make him appear less feminine than the game makes him to be. And lastly, you can see here, I added Zhou Yu's signature weapon from Dynasty Warrior 4 as the back piece of this illustration. I'm really annoyed that the company decided to make him use a staff, because I think the quintessential weapon that I associate Zhou Yu with would always be this weapon. So I just looked at some weapon display shelf from the internet and added this weapon as a back piece. Alright guys, that's all I have to say in this video. I hope you found this video to be entertaining, and if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to the channel, and I will see all of you in next week's video. Bye bye.